the amazing thing is I'm normally the stronger swimmer in my teams when I hook up with people. And for me, I love having a stronger runner that can support me in the running sections instead. And I don't mind pulling all the swims because that's part of that whole joint experience, doing it together.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 221 of the show. We've got a great feel-good episode for everyone this week. Joining us from Stockholm is our friend Henrik Forssell, A.K.A. the Swimrun Pappa. It was great to have him on the podcast to chat about all things swimrun and his remarkable swimrun streak, and we'll just leave it at that for now.
We will. It is a very good feel-good episode.
It's great.
If you're drinking along, take a shot every time we say something positive about swimrun on this episode. You'll be hammered within a few minutes. But first, training update. Training for ÖTILLÖ Whistler has begun in earnest in about a month. But until then, we're swimming, running, still hitting the gym, still keeping up on our yoga, stretching, mobility stuff as well. Just in case you missed it as well, I think the hype is building for ÖTILLÖ Whistler. We released our course preview episode recently, so go back and check that one out if you're interested in watching and are interested in racing that. Also, discount code later on. So stay tuned to that.
Stay tuned. I love it.
Stay tuned. Now for this week's shout out.
Yeah, so speaking of stay tuned, this week's shout out goes to our good friend Hugh Bowman. We've got a dope carbon fiber paddle episode coming out, and he is, quote unquote, a bit obsessed.
A bit.
I don't want to misquote him. He said
this
bit
is
obsessed.
What he did say
with this particular piece of swimrun kit, and hey, we're here for it. So he's been testing all the paddles. We sent him Frank paddles. He has the Evolution ones. He's used the Arc one. So we're bringing him on for his special report. So we're gonna have like the definitive carbon fiber episode.
Paddle showdown.
So stay tuned for that.
I'm excited for that as well.
It's gonna be good.
Now for this week's Feats of Endurance. So this week's winner is not yet technically in our Strava club.
Yeah.
Maybe someday. But her accomplishment is more than worthy of mentioning. So on Friday, March 22nd, Jasmine Paris, a 40-year-old British runner, finished the Barclay Marathon, which, if somehow you have not heard of this, it's a grueling 100-mile race with over 60,000 feet of climbing, with only 90 seconds to spare on the 60-hour time limit. From first cigarette lighting, you have 60 hours to go.
Yeah.
She did it. She became the first female to ever finish this diabolical race. There's only been a handful, 21 people have ever finished this race in 38 years. They're subject of several documentaries.
Yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, there's one on there right now.
The Ginger Runner has a good one on YouTube as well, featuring Gary Robbins. But this race is diabolical. Is probably the most accurate term to describe it. Going through, it's in Tennessee, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to find pages of a book that this old crazy man goes and hides around.
That's how you prove that you made it to the spot. Yeah. It's something else.
It's definitely something else. That's for sure. But major kudos to that being, and the first female, just an absolutely amazing showing. And I have seen the clip several times on Instagram. Go watch it. Her, you think you're shelled finishing a race, like she's got nothing left but just giving it all she can to the the little gate, basically running to that. We'll have to invite her if she's on Strava to the Low Tide Boys Strava Club. She can check out what swim runners are doing. Maybe I think some time in the pool would be good for her to, shake out some of the soreness.
Yeah, exactly.
On that front, if she could do that, ÖTILLÖ would be no big deal for her if she can swim. Now for a little bit of show business. Well, we mentioned a little bit earlier, we're super stoked for our A race ÖTILLÖ Whistler, and we mentioned during the course preview, our friends at ÖTILLÖ USA hooked it up. They got a discount code for you all to save 15% off your race registration to any 2024 event. That code is LOWTIDE15. LOWTIDE15. It'll save you 15% on any Attila North America race, which includes Canada, which is where Whistler is.
It's where it is.
There it is. So that's really awesome of Lars and the team at Attila USA. We'll see you there in July. Now, for a little bit of feel good in your cup, our conversation with the Swimrun Pappa.
Yeah, it was great to finally have Henrik on the show. It was his first podcast ever that he's ever been on. So, he's a rookie. But he did it. He was great. He's a great ambassador for the sport, and his love for swimrun is as obvious as it is infectious. In this conversation, we chatted about his athletic background, what he loves about swimrun. It's a good, it's a good chunk of just If you want to just something warm and fuzzy, swimrun stories, there you go. And again, this amazing consecutive swimrun streak that when this show airs, he will have completed this month's task.
The streak continues.
Yes, the streak is essentially a swimrun a month.
For 44
months. Crazy.
Wild.
In a row.
Way to go, Papa.
He lives in Sweden.
Way to go, Swimrun Papa. This is including the winter. We get into all this stuff, what sort of gear he might be using for these ice, literally cutting.
Yeah. What happens to your knees?
What happens?
It's fascinating.
It's wild. But Henrik has been a Low Tide Boys fan since very, very early days. We were really grateful to be able to meet him face to face in the flesh in 22 when we went to Stockholm for Attila then, and then subsequent years he also raced it that year. So it was really great to catch up and have a proper chat with him and dive into the streak as well and hear how it got started and all sorts of stuff. But without any further ado, let's swim run our way to our conversation with the Swimrun Pappa. Who's your Papa?
Very excited for this conversation with, you might know him as the Swimrun Pappa. We also know him as the Swimrun Pappa, but we also know him as Henrik Forssell. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be on your show. I've been following and listening to most of your episodes over the years. So,
the honor is ours because we know you've been listening. You've been interacting with us since we started. Very supportive of us since when we just sort of crashed the swimrun party in early 2020. So thank you for that. And we want to chat about your swimrun history and a lot of that. But I think it's helpful. So we met you in person in 2022 at the World Championship, and we had a meetup where at some rooftop bar that was super great. You show up. I was very happy to see you, and I was literally ordering a drink, and you're like, "I'll have what you're having." I was like, "I don't know if you want to do that," because I wasn't I don't drink alcohol, so I got some like fruity thing with like I think it might even have had like
did it have any like umbrella in it?
Umbrella on it, maybe, I don't know. So I felt bad. It's like, oh, here we are having this moment, and we're both drinking these really fruity drinks. But since then, we've chatted more, and I think if anyone really captures sort of the ethos of swimrun is someone like you, Henrik, because you've been doing the sport for a super long time. Why don't you take us all the way back to how you discovered swimrun, and then we'll get into some a streak,
some of your hijinks,
and all sorts of this stuff. Hijinks, perfect.
Yeah, no, actually, I've heard about the sport for a long time. I grew up being a swimmer, swimming here in Sweden, and also doing a high school year in the States, going out doing swimming for the high school I went to in Lawrence, Kansas. But then I stopped swimming and, kept fit for many years until probably 2016, 2017. I started picking up my swimming again and started running. And actually in August 2019, I went out to Hellasgården and met up with Ulrika, the famous one, the one who defined the world swim run, and participated in my first swim run with her out there on the course just borrowing a wetsuit that she had some sponsor there that had wetsuits, so we could just borrow it. And I tried the sport for the first time, did that 8K swim run, and I was hooked. Just loving it. The whole ethos of that sport, this sport, how it is, it just, I'm so enthusiastic about it, and I just love doing swim run all the time.
I love it. And there's something magical about Hellas Garden. And when Chris and I went to Sweden for ÖTILLÖ in 2022, we were like dead set on like, we have to go see what this is all about here. And I think it's one of the only areas that has actually a marked swim run course, like with proper signage and distances and stuff. Like it's like how you would see a hiking trail here in the States for us, for the US listeners. But, and it definitely didn't disappoint. Like you just walking out there, it's like, oh, it just makes so much sense how easy it is to make a swim run around here. So, and you're with the person who coined the term. So not a bad way to start your swim run journey, I suppose.
And that's what I love about swim run, is that it's so accessible, at least here in Sweden, in that sense that now we have a number of those courses marked out, and we have all these small local events where it's more or less a Facebook group that just decides on every Tuesday we meet up at this lake and we do a swim run, and anyone who wants to tag along, come and join us, and we'll do it for an hour. We have one in Sickla, we have one, the West Side Swim Runners, and there's a number of them going around on every week around Stockholm, where I live. And just being able to do it as going out for a trail run, and instead just put on your wetsuit and take the bus down to the venue, and then do a swim run for an hour, and then take the bus home. If you don't
in your wetsuit, and buoy and everything, sitting on the bus. Nice.
Of course.
Yeah, why not? Yes. Now, I think something that, our listeners, if they've been around a while, they've definitely heard you on the Feats of Endurance. You have won. We've given you this award at least once, multiple deserving of multiple times. But you have a little bit of a swim run streak going, that you do a swim run one a month for, I don't know, how many months are we up to now?
We're on today, when you're sending this, we're doing our 41st swim run, consecutive months.
Wow. So for the quick math on that, that's over 3 years.
Yep.
Getting close to 4.
Yeah.
And, Sweden gets pretty chilly, I believe, in the winter time. So this is doing swim runs in the dead of winter in Sweden, which is...
Chipper's been doing his research.
I looked at a globe. But how did this sort of streak come about, and when did you decide to kind of really make it a thing, I guess?
Well, the one whose fault it is that we started doing this swim run streak and just continue going on it is one of my best buddies, Clarissa. Because Clarissa and Herman and I and a couple of other guys, we were out once again at Hellas Garden, where we have the Hellas Frostbite, which is a swim run. Yes. It's, what do you call it? 4 weeks before Christmas.
Thanksgiving?
First of Advent. You're counting down the 4 weekends before Christmas.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, like sort of the Advent count.
4 weeks before Christmas, they always have this swim run in the dead winter. It might be a nice, still fallish experience. And we've done it when it's been like 15 degrees below and the whole lake is frozen. So they have to cut up some sort of open water where we at least can swim 25 meters.
Oof.
And we do a swim run. We did a swim run back then in 2020 in November. It's this round course where you go 5Ks, one swim, and you do it 3 times. So you run more or less 15 Ks. And getting out of the water on the last swim, Clarissa just said, "This is amazing. Shouldn't we do this every month?" And Herman and I, we just looked at each other and said, "Sure, let's go for that." And now we're
Well,
doing the 41st.
So streaks are a funny thing, right? Because at first you're like, oh, this is cute. And we've done it for 3 months. And then it's like, next thing you know, it's been a year. Now you're like, well, now I can't stop because we have a streak. There must have been some months there where you're like, we need to go do a swim run or else we're going to lose the streak. How hard was it to kind of keep the streak going for so long?
Well, the toughest thing is in dead winter.
Sure,
because,
sure.
when downtown Stockholm is frozen, you have to go out into archipelago to find open water. And even then finding open water with a small bays and so on are frozen. So you have to go on the outside on the ice to get a proper swims, because we've decided we need to do a 3, 4, 5 swims at least, even though they're not that long when you're doing it in the dead winter.
Yeah.
You're
So it's not.
in.
So this isn't really. It's not like a duathlon where you're just like, okay, get one swim in, a couple transitions, technically a swim run. No, you guys are at least 2 or 3 swims to really make it count.
And at least 10Ks.
At least.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Now we're transitioning to a gear portion of this. How do you prepare yourself for such frigid water temps?
I have neoprene socks in my regular swimrun shoes.
Okay.
I have an extra heat seeker. These merino wool socks. And then I actually have a cap or normally we just use double swim caps on the head, but some of us have more neoprene head caps. But the knees, it's a regular swimrun, the wetsuit I'm using. So from halfway down the thighs to below the knees, it's open.
Ooh, chilly.
And it's interesting to do that because when the knees and the skin gets really cold, you don't really feel the ice, and ice can actually be quite sharp. So I've had it a couple of times when I got out of the water and all of a sudden realizing I'm actually bleeding quite heavily from my knees because I've have these quite deep cuts in the knees.
Wow.
Yeah, skin wise, but still. So, but you don't feel anything because your knees are 0 degrees or something like that.
No.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, obviously, you're also like an active swim runner. So with the streak, if you go do a race, that sort of counts, right? So September 2022, you definitely hit your streak at the World Championship.
Check.
Now, as someone who's super experienced, local from Stockholm, seen the sport develop over the years, can you just walk us through what it's like to be sort of at the front lines of the growth of the sport and sort of how you see it sort of evolving as someone who's obviously loving it and been doing it every month for a very long time?
Yeah, the amazing thing is, I think that what we see all across the world right now, all these developments with the French teams growing now, where they have all this support arranged in so many swim runs, that's the scene that I've been living through with here in Stockholm for now a number of years. That easy accessibility to do a swim run. As I was saying, I love going down to Sickla, and where we have this round course, it takes like, when I do it, 10 minutes to do the course. And the rules are very simple. You get down there, meet up with the guys that are there. Anyone shows up on a Facebook group. And at 6 o'clock, we start the watch. And then we go that 10-minute loop, which is one run, one short 100-meter swim, a run, 100-meter swim. And then you go around that course. And the fast ones, they push at getting 7 laps. The beginners can do 2 laps in a completely safe environment where everybody can do it. So it's so easy for anyone who just got the first wetsuit to go out there and just give it a try. And also from a perspective, we were talking about one of those things where you can really earn a lot of time is, of course, training on your transitions. An example, this Sickla event is so amazing because all of a sudden you have 14 transitions if you do 7 laps in just an hour, where you really can push on the technique of getting in and out of the water in a quick way, because it's not any easy transitions in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a huge. I mean, Chris and I have talked about this before, but we went out to Hella's Garden for when we were there for 2022, and the terrain in Sweden is unlike anything that we had ever experienced in the United States, and it's a little bit trickier on the transitions. And you're right, just the high frequency there, doing those loops 14. I mean, the amount of leveling up that you would do in familiarity and just quickness really makes a huge difference. And I think from what Chris and I hear a lot with the new folks who are just getting into it, like, oh yeah, my first couple transitions, it's like, oh, I had my tether was like round around both of us, my pull buoy, they're kind of tangled up. By the end, it's a little bit more of a fluid thing. So that's we're always stressing if it's your first couple times, go out there and really focus on getting the reps in, less about how far you can swim or how far you can run, but like getting those transitions in really helps it kind of be more of a fluid, seamless, sport than two.
Yeah, I was just explaining it to one of my friends' kids, because I don't know why this kid was asking me about swim run, but essentially I was like, it's kind of like learning a new dance, right? When you do the transitions, right? It's like, hey, you have to learn the steps, and to think that you're just going to show up on the dance floor first time and you're going to look good, it's just not going to happen. It requires practice. It requires a certain attention to it. And yeah, to echo what Chipper said, it's like, if we're giving anyone's listening to this and wants to level up their swim run game, practice your transitions.
Yeah. Then the other thing that I think it's an amazing event that we have here in Sweden, and in Stockholm, is that we have this local swimrun store that sells all the wetsuits and all the gears and so on. And what they've been doing,
is that Wolfwear?
It's Wolfwear. Wolfwear. They actually have this event every Wednesday, all summer long. So starting mid-May until mid-September. Every Wednesday you can show up at one of these other lakes, and they bring a whole truck full of wetsuits. Nice. They have extra pull buoys, they have paddles. So you just have to show up with some running shoes and your bathing suit, and there you can try out swim run, and you pay like $10 for just joining their venue. Of course, with the intent that they want to sell wetsuits to us and all the gear, but getting that accessibility of trying out the sport is so amazing. So if any of you other guys around the world are listening to that, use that as an example. And if you can arrange that, it's been amazing for the growth of the sport.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because like when Chipper and I started doing swimrun in 2018, like we just had no knowledge. We couldn't go to a store, couldn't do anything. Like we were just doing our own research. I ended up getting this head suit from France, and then Chipper ended up getting like an arc suit at Catalina. And there's just like a lot of, there's a sort of a gear gap in terms of just being able to check it out. Unlike triathlon or even like cycling, where you can just go to the store, try a bunch of bikes, like you really don't have that. And yeah, I mean, that sounds like just a great idea. Like a lot of the stuff that we do on the show and that a lot of people in the swimrun space are doing is just trying to lower the barrier of entry to the sport for people to try it. We believe, and I'm sure I don't even need to ask you, Henrik, I know you agree, all we need to do is get people to that first race, and then it sort of takes care of itself after those first couple transitions. I'm curious, like, if you spend some time in the States, what do you think we need to do here to help grow the sport, besides obviously having more events and more opportunities for people to race?
I think these Wednesday events are amazing in that sense. As I know Joachim, who owns the store, quite well, I've been helping out, and I know last summer, end of June, people were starting to go on vacation. One Wednesday, we were so many beginners, so I took my own group of 20 people that had never done it before and just introduced them to the sport during an hour. We ran to the closest beach, went into the water. They had to get the feel of having a pull buoy in a wetsuit. They had never done that. Most of them were doing breaststroke for the first time, just getting to know the sport.
Mm.
And of course, that resulted that over that summer, a number of people started coming down, taking a course in learning to swim freestyle. And all of a sudden, we had new swimmers swim runners joining the sport. So such an amazing way of getting that on that first level. Then the other thing is we have these really short events here also in the Stockholm area, where during the summer we have like 5 or 7 competitions on Tuesday evenings in the Swimrun Cup. And it's more of an exercise competition. So short course, 6, 7, 8, 9 Ks. Anyone can do it. We've had 10-year-old and we've had like 75, 80-year-olds doing their first race at these events. And if the fast ones that want to push it and have a really tough race, they push it and do it in 45, 50 minutes. And the beginners, they can spend 1.5 hours. But it's swim run, so we all wait for the last ones getting to the finishing line, cheering them on when they come up at the finishing line. And that's also an amazing type of event, those short ones, really simple, accessible ones that helps grow the sport.
Yeah, it sounds like we've experienced in our own personal experience in Stockholm, but the sense of community there as well. And we have a strong community in the U.S., whether it's in the North Carolina area or Austin or wherever we're going. But there is something that I think everyone that has done swimrun kind of appreciates the hurdle to clear on that first, figuring out the first couple bits of it before it really starts to click. And I think that's part of why the community is so strong about hey, it doesn't matter if you're like a world-class racer or it's your third time doing it. Everyone's willing to invest the time to help the new people understand how to kind of get the most out of what they're doing and how to make it click for them. And I guess it sounds like that's what you're experiencing as well on a weekly basis almost.
Yeah. And as what you're pointing at as well is that the spirit of swimrun, that everybody is helping out. I did ÖTILLÖ in 2020, I think it was. And on one of the last small islands before we get back on ÖTILLÖ, I slipped and just sprained my knee a little bit on getting out of the water. And my teammate was right in front of me, and 2 other teams were coming out of the water at the same time. And they heard me whine a little bit about, ooh, I hurt my knee. And of course, this is swimrun, so the 2 teams next to us stopped, checked, how are you doing? Did you hurt yourself? Do you need support to get back? No, I'm fine. I think I didn't hurt myself that bad. And that spirit of always helping out is also so amazing in swimrun. And being able to ask the elite those questions, for example, as you're saying as well.
Yeah, I think we've entered the portion of the interview where we just all start preaching to the choir as to why we think swimrun is so amazing. But so continuing that, one of the things that you've obviously living in Europe, you have a lot of accessibility to some of these other countries to do swim runs in different venues. I know recently you did the Swimrun Hydra event in Greece. And I was wondering if you could just talk us through that one. It looks like a beautiful place to swim run, number one, but I'm curious, what did you think of that race? And, is it one that you'd recommend?
First of all, traveling with swimrun is such an amazing thing, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've done Backwater Man in Austria. I've done Malta, ÖTILLÖ, and now my swimrun championship at Hydra. And just going abroad is amazing. Meeting up with other nationalities at these venues. And from my experience, just from those 3 events, all the events are very well organized, feels super secure, even though both at Malta in 2022 and now in Hydra, we had really stormy weather and so on, they right away redid the courses, making them safe, keeping them safe for us, so we could really do these wonderful races in wonderful environments. And Hydra, I'll recommend it any day. It's an amazing event. Flying into Athens and just taking a boat ride 2.5 hours, and there you are at this magical island in the Greek archipelago.
It's such a cool way to experience. I'm always one of these, before Swimrun, it's like when I go to a new place, I like just walking around and kind of experiencing the local piece of it. And I think Swimrun's a great time. And Chris and I will always go on a run around town to kind of take in the sights. But Swimrun's just another quite amazing way to really experience a different part of a new area that most people aren't doing right. Most people aren't going out for a run. They're kind of sticking to the more touristy areas, but going for a run and then a swim over and over is quite a unique way to experience a new location.
And then, of course, going to Hydra, I'm fortunate, I'm part of the Envol gang. And, we were 20 people from Envol going down there from all over the world. A couple of Americans and some Brits and some French and some Swedes. And, we had a blast just chatting and getting to know each other and talking about our various experiences of swimrun with all these nice people from all around the world.
I mean, there's something about, again, we're still in like the Swimrun Love Fest portion of the interview, but there is something about the sport. It's like, I think it's something about the shared experience, and there's so few people that do it. So if you meet another swim runner, it's like, like if some swim runner, like for example, Henrik, if you showed up in San Francisco, you're like, hey, my hotel got messed up. Can I stay at your house? It's like, absolutely. In fact, why did you even book a hotel in the first place? It's like, it's that level of friendliness and camaraderie for people that have had this sort of shared experience and this love for the sport. And, we've spoken with a lot of guests, and even like folks like Michael Lamel, who think that, who say that sort of comes from the adventure sports background, where it's all about being supportive and helpful. But I feel like it's such a deep part of the sport that, I think when Chipper and I went to Sweden for the first time, it really made a lot of sense to us. Of course, the sport originated here because everyone was so friendly and welcoming to us and giving us fika recommendations, and some people telling us to stop having fika, and some people telling us to have fika. It was a whole thing. But I'm curious, as someone who's essentially, at ground zero for this, where do you think that comes from? And do you think that we can continue this into the future as the sport inevitably continues to grow?
I think so, and I hope so. And I think that one part of it is that for me, all the longer races that I do, I wouldn't want to do them solo. When I do these shorter ones up to 10K, it's fun races where it's not that serious and you can do the single class on those short ones. But when you go beyond 2 hours, I think swimrun should be done in teams. And if you don't have a teammate, hook up with someone. It doesn't matter if you're the stronger swimmer or the stronger runner. It's not important to be equal, as you've been talking about on all your shows and so on. And I agree 100% to that, because the amazing thing is I'm normally the stronger swimmer in my teams when I hook up with people. And for me, I love having a stronger runner that can support me in the running sections instead. And I don't mind pulling all the swims, because that's part of that whole joint experience, doing it together. And especially at the World Champs, me and Karin that did that race together. Ooh, that was an amazing experience, that camaraderie that we had together as a team. And that's going to be a special relation for me for the rest of my life, spending, as we did, 12 hours out on the course.
Yeah, and there's even almost like a halo effect there, especially around ÖTILLÖ, the World Championship there, because everyone is like going to the island and doing the race, and then after, everyone did the exact same thing. And yes, it took Max and Hugo 7 hours to do it. And then it took some other people like almost 13 hours to do it, but we all did the same thing. So it's like the broader, like shared experience. It's a very, I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's like there's an interesting relationship that happens with everyone that kind of did the exact same thing as you, whether if they're at the front or the back or somewhere in the middle there. But it is a really defining experience for sure. Yeah. I couldn't imagine doing that race solo. That would be, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. It's just too.
Want to do it. Exactly.
Yeah, it's too much.
But even at the 5 hour races, it's so amazing to be together with someone there, supporting each other, going through those ups and downs that you do experience when you start talking about marathon distances and beyond that. Because we all know that anyone that's done a marathon or a longer race in that vicinity and upwards, you will have periods when you go down in energy and getting fatigue and so on, and having someone alongside that can help you, support you, remember, come on, take an extra gel or whatever you need. It's such an amazing experience doing it together with someone else.
And sure. The shoe will be on the other foot. You'll be in a good spot, and then you'll need to pull the other person out a little bit. Usually happens in those races. Except,
hopefully both team members aren't going down at the same time.
Yeah,
that's what we can all hope for. Now, Henrik, let me ask you. So, ÖTILLÖ did a big expansion in the U.S. In 2020, Chipper and I were saying we didn't know anything. We were like, 2020 is the year swim run. We were super wrong. We're saying it again. We think 2024 is the year swim run. I think ÖTILLÖ buying into Odyssey and really trying to beef up the U.S. series, I think is going to bring a lot of new attention to the sport. Now, as someone who has his finger on a pulse of what's happening in Sweden, how are you guys seeing that, looking across the Atlantic Ocean to the U.S.? Are you guys excited about it? Have you heard of people that are going to be flying out to do races? Or what's sort of the vibe on the U.S. expansion from the Sweden side of things?
No, I think we're all just happy that at such a big country with so much adventure racing, people coming to the sport, it's going to be amazing to get that whole crowd of from the States joining up and finding out about this wonderful sport. So from my perspective, it's just wonderful, the expansion that's going on in the States now, bringing more possibilities for us to meet new friends, and also whenever I get a chance to come across to the States again, do a swim run, because that's, of course, on the bucket list.
Of course.
Yeah. Has to be on the bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of good opportunities for you on the East Coast, and then now we're definitely shoring up the West Coast swim runs as well. So happy to have that, and even some centrally located on that front. Well, we did ÖTILLÖ together in 2022. You're hopping and bopping all around Europe for your calendar. What's 2024 looking like for you from a race perspective?
Well, the first thing is the swim run battle. Will you guys joining?
Oh, right. We've been asked to join, but we've honestly, Chipper and I have been so busy we haven't even chatted about. And honestly, when we do these things, we feel like we need to really just take it to an extreme, ridiculous level. And I don't think we've had enough time to think about, well, what's our video going to look like and all this stuff.
Because you participated a couple of years ago when Nicholas did the first one with Envol.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a lot more time on our hands then, though.
Yeah, that is true.
Because we had such a blast that last time. So we have now signed up. It's Clarissa and Herman and I, and then we have 6 other friends. So we created a small team with 9 people, and we're going to go all in for it. Try to do a 2K swim run every day for those 30 days. And then just look forward at all these amazing ideas that I think Andreas and my Swimrun Championship have in plan for that month of from the 10th of May to 10th of June. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about cutting holes in ice to do those when it's in June, so it's a little bit more.
One of the
better
funnest
for you, I
parts last time was when we did the 24-hour swim run. The team had to do a swim run that started every hour. And,
Guys
the
are
whole
animals
team,
out there.
we were doing it. And actually Clarissa and another girl, they got the time slots at 2 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the morning. So they decided to do it together and do a 2-hour swim run in the middle of the night in the dark.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's like
because why
David
not?
Goggins level of type of stuff.
Have you tried night swim run yet?
I don't think we've done a night swim run.
We try to
I've done
wrap up
night
before
swims,
it gets to be nighttime.
But yeah,
That's the goal usually. It's finished when it's light
Okay.
outside.
we could. Just for you, Henrik. We'll Chipper and I. We'll do like an evening swim run one of these weeks. Why not?
No, because I just love it. We've
Chipper's not
actually
saying
had
it,
those
but I just
races
want to.
in the middle of the night. Getting your headlights and running a marked trail with small reflex things. Then you get down to a lake, and across the lake, someone has put out one of those bicycle lights flashing on the other side. You turn off your
That's all you need.
headlight, and then you swim straight out in the lake in the dark. To me,
Yeah, if you don't have your headlight on, then the sharks can't see you either. So
Exactly.
it's better.
Yeah, there's no sharks up there. It's too cold.
No, you have to do it up in
That
one of the rivers instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, beyond the swim run battle, do you have any? Are you going to be doing any of the ÖTILLÖ Swedish races? Are you trying to go to the World Championship again? What's the rest of the year look like for you?
So far, we've signed up for EX, doing that one, and then Långholmen, which is a city swim run downtown Stockholm, a fun race. It's the 33K just downtown Stockholm. So one of the swims are in front of City Hall. One of the swims are across the water from the Lake Mälaren out to the Baltic Sea. You swim across the stream there, and you go, in your wetsuit all over downtown Stockholm, and that is amazingly fun.
Is there any Fika aid stations there
Of course,
during that one?
there's
Okay,
always
I'm in.
Fika aid stations.
Of course. I love it. No hesitation. Of course.
No, and then Herman and I, we're hoping on to doing the World Champs one of these years. If it's going to be this year and we'll get a wild card, or for the next year, that's at least in the plans. I would love to do it once more, at least.
Yeah. Now, what was it? I mean, obviously, I think I know the answer, but what was it about the World Championship for you that makes you want to come back and do it again?
As you've been talking about in numerous of your shows, is that feeling that now I've done it once, now I know about the race, I know the course a little bit, even though I won't remember everything, and so many things that you would love to change and be a little bit more prepared for. So doing it once more would be amazing.
Yeah.
At least.
I mean, that's exactly what we feel like too. And although you don't remember it, I mean, Chris, I'll curious what it was like for you, but there was definitely a lot of familiarity with it. Like, I didn't remember, I know exactly the way this trail goes and that trail, or the islands laid out. Like, I don't know all that, but it was very familiar on the second time through.
Yeah, there was a lot of, it felt more like nostalgia than actual this is the route. It was like, this looks familiar, this feels familiar, I remember this, or there was a lot of that, which was super helpful. I mean, I think for us doing it 2 years back to back, I think probably helped to cement it in. I think if we went back in a few years or something like that, I think I would still have some of that recall just from having done it twice. But it's just such a magical thing, and every race is going to be different. The main character is really the course, and we're just all playing small parts.
We're just pawns.
Just pawns. Just pawns.
Yeah, really, because you're so left out to nature there on that course. whether it's a windy day or a cold day or
Yeah. And you know what I've been thinking a lot about recently, Henrik, is this idea is like, if you don't respect the course, if you don't respect what nature is going to give you, like it'll spit you out. Doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much of an amazing athlete you might be at baseline. But if you don't take it seriously and you don't respect nature, what you need to do for that day, the course will just spit you out. People who are really fit don't make the first cutoff, and people who are, we just interviewed someone last month, the team Calamanders, they came in last place, but they respected it. They trained the best they could. And, they finished, whereas some teams what you thought would have finished easily didn't.
No, exactly. As you say it, you need really to respect it. And that's, isn't that part of the adventure racing background that we were talking about earlier, that's such a key element of adventure racing, that you really need to respect nature and realize that you're doing it together with nature.
Yeah. And actually, as you say that, Henrik, it makes me think it's like, I think one of the things inherent in respecting nature is having some humility, kind of like about your ability and just understanding that it's like, you're just going to have to deal with what nature throws at you. And if you don't have that humility, it makes it harder for you to be flexible and kind of roll with the punches. And maybe that's one of the things that makes it, that at once makes the sport really friendly because, the egos are sort of in check, but also makes the race really interesting because it requires you to kind of let go of your ego in that way.
Exactly. And the last part that we haven't really touched is one of my things that coming from swimming, but what I love about swimrun is I like it when it's 20%, around 20% swimming. And why do I do that? Because from my experience or feeling, is that with 20% swimming, whether you're a super fit Max and Hugo guys or more friends at the back of the race, it takes
you mean
more
like
or less
like Chipper and Chris sort of guys.
But 20% swimming, it's more or less half the time swimming and half the time running.
Yeah.
Give and take. And that is so amazing also about the sport. That a 2K swim and a 10K run will make more or less spending 1.5 hour where you spend 45 minutes swimming and 45 minutes running. Give and take.
It is a good balance.
But yeah, it's true.
Definitely a good balance.
And in comparison with triathlon or other sports where the swimming part is not that big in percentage wise, that's also what I love about swimrun, because it's what happens in all these races is that amazing thing that I think you also been talking about, that if you're a strong swimmer, go ahead on the swims, and then comes the guys running behind you, catching you, and you go back and forth through the whole race with these guys that after a couple of swims, you have settled in with your bunch of teams around you that you keep pushing each other. And can we get across the finish line before these guys, or will they be catching us on the last swim or on the last round, whether it's a swim or a run?
Yeah.
And
that's why you got to try to be stealth in the water.
Yeah.
Try to like sneak by them so they can't. No. Or they blow by you and you're not paying enough attention.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, Henrik, I've certainly enjoyed this time with you today, and I think we can chat over fika for hours and hours, no doubt, on that front. But really excited to hear how your 44th edition of the monthly swimrun wraps up here. At the time of release here, you will have it bagged up. By the time this episode drops in the United States, you'll be toweling off in Sweden there.
And going for ÖTILLÖ. Öl is the Swedish word for beer.
Oh, okay.
So beer to beer.
Beer to beer. Love love that as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's O with the little tilde
Exactly.
and then the L. That's
Not
right.
an ÖTILLÖ,
Oh,
but
do
an
you guys have
ÖTILLÖ.
tildes and
Tildes.
tildes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Henrik, again, echoing Chipper, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for being so supportive of us and always being welcoming and interacting with us on social media. Like, I feel like we've known you for a really long time, and getting to meet you in Sweden last year was just a real thrill for us, and appreciate you for everything that you're doing for the sport.
Amazing to talk to you guys, and I can't emphasize how grateful I am that listening to your pod every week, I really, really feel that you are one of the main inspiring people that are really, really pushing the sport. And when it starts growing now in the States, it's all thanks to you guys and the whole swimrun crowd there. But your efforts that you put in and all these episodes that you're putting out, it's amazing for the sport. So thank you so much to you guys as well.
Well, thank you for that not paid endorsement. But I really appreciate it. Awesome. Well, we'll see you around, Swimrun Pappa.
We will. Take care.
Bye. Awesome. That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swimrun.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of
too.
course, yes.